5 conspiracy theories that turned out to be true. The term conspiracy theory is often used to dismiss ideas as absurd or paranoid, but history holds a chilling secret. Sometimes the conspiracies are real. For decades, whispers of secret government programs and hidden agendas were ignored. Then, the documents were declassified. The whistleblowers came forward, and the truth, far stranger and more disturbing than fiction, was finally revealed. Today, we're looking at 5 conspiracy theories that were once dismissed as fantasy, but turned out to be shockingly true. Number 5. The Gulf of Tonkin Incident. The theory was simple but explosive. The U.S. government faked an attack on its own ships to justify escalating the Vietnam War. In August 1964, President Lyndon B. Johnson reported that North Vietnamese forces had launched an unprovoked attack against American destroyers in the Gulf of Tonkin. The news shocked the nation. Congress overwhelmingly passed the Gulf of Tonkin Resolution, granting the president broad war-making powers. It was the green light for full-scale war. But years later, declassified documents from the National Security Agency revealed a very different story. The first incident was real, but it was provoked by American intelligence operations in the area. The second, crucial attack, the one used as the primary justification for war, likely never happened at all. It was a combination of misread sonar data, bad weather, and what one official later called Tonkin ghosts. Sailors on edge, jumpy radar operators, and shadows in the water. The government knew the evidence was flimsy at best. They knew it might not have happened, but they used it anyway to plunge the nation deeper into a conflict that would cost over 58,000 American lives and millions of Vietnamese casualties. The justification for a full-scale war was built on a lie, and the people in charge knew it from the very beginning. Number 4. Operation Mockingbird. For years, people claimed the CIA was secretly using journalists to spread propaganda. It sounded paranoid, even ridiculous. How could America's free press be compromised? The theory suggested that the Central Intelligence Agency had recruited hundreds of American journalists to become assets. Their mission was to plant pro-American stories in foreign and domestic press, manipulate public opinion, and gather intelligence under the cover of reporting. The idea that trusted news organizations, pillars of democracy, were being manipulated from the shadows seemed unthinkable. But in 1975, the Church Committee investigations in Congress blew the story wide open. Under intense scrutiny, the CIA was forced to admit its deep relationships with members of the press. Journalists at major outlets, including some of the most respected names in American media, had been on the CIA's payroll. While the full scope of Operation Mockingbird is still debated and many details remain classified, the agency confirmed it had journalists working as assets and used media outlets for covert operations around the world. The line between news and propaganda had been deliberately blurred by the very people sworn to protect American democracy. The public was left wondering, if they lied about this, what else are they lying about? Number 3. The Tuskegee Syphilis Study. This is not just a conspiracy, This is a moral catastrophe, a crime against humanity committed by the American government on its own citizens. The theory was that the U.S. government conducted horrific medical experiments on African Americans without their knowledge or consent. For many, it seemed too cruel to be true. But it was true. Every word of it. For 40 years, from 1932 to 1972, the U.S. Public Health Service ran a study in Tuskegee, Alabama, on nearly 400 African American men who had syphilis. The men, mostly poor sharecroppers, were told they were receiving free health care for something called bad blood. They trusted the government's doctors. They believed they were being helped. In reality, they were being denied treatment. The researchers never intended to cure them. Even when penicillin became the standard cure for syphilis in the 1940s, the goal was to study the full, brutal progression of the disease until death, to watch it ravage their bodies, to observe how it destroyed their organs, their minds, their lives. Many of the men died, others went blind, insane, or suffered severe organ damage. The disease was also transmitted to their wives and children. The study continued for 4 decades through different administrations with full government knowledge and funding. It was only when a reporter exposed the story in 1972 that public outrage forced the study to be shut down. A government-funded program had treated human beings as lab rats. The Tuskegee Study remains one of the darkest chapters in American medical history and a horrifying example of systemic racism in action. Number 2. COINTELPRO imagined the FBI secretly trying to destroy political groups it disagreed with, not by arresting criminals or gathering evidence for trials, but by using psychological warfare, illegal surveillance, and dirty tricks to tear apart organizations from the inside. That was the core of the COINTELPRO conspiracy theory. From the 1950s to the 1970s, activists, particularly in the civil rights and anti-war movements, claimed they were being illegally targeted by the federal government. They reported strange incidents, mysterious break-ins, phones that seemed tapped, letters that turned friends into enemies, provocateurs trying to incite violence. They were called paranoid, delusional. The FBI denied everything. Then, in 1971, a group of activists broke into an FBI office in Media, Pennsylvania, and stole classified documents. The files they leaked to the press revealed a secret FBI program called COINTELPRO, short for Counterintelligence Program. Its methods were shocking and illegal. The FBI used psychological warfare, forged documents, illegal wiretaps, and infiltration to harass and disrupt domestic political organizations. Their targets included the Black Panther Party, the American Indian Movement, Martin Luther King Jr., and anti-Vietnam War protesters. The goal wasn't to enforce the law. It was to neutralize these groups by creating paranoia, sowing division, and destroying them from within. In one notorious case, the FBI sent an anonymous letter to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. encouraging him to commit suicide. They tried to blackmail him with recordings of extramarital affairs. This wasn't law enforcement. This was a state-sponsored war on American citizens exercising their constitutional rights. The conspiracy was real, and it was far worse than anyone had imagined. Number 1. Operation Northwoods. What if the U.S. government planned to commit acts of terrorism on American soil and blame it on another country to start a war? What if they planned to kill innocent Americans, stage hijackings, and bomb American cities just to justify an invasion? This sounds like the ultimate paranoid delusion, the kind of theory that gets you laughed out of any serious conversation. Yet it was a real proposal, drafted by real military leaders and presented to the President of the United States. In 1962, at the height of Cold War tensions, the highest levels of the U.S. military drafted a top-secret plan called Operation Northwoods. The target was Cuba, led by Fidel Castro. The Joint Chiefs of Staff wanted a war, but they needed public support. So they proposed a series of false flag attacks. The plan included staging fake attacks on American cities, sinking a U.S. warship and blaming it on Cuba, hijacking planes, and developing a terror campaign designed to horrify the American public and whip them into a war frenzy. The document explicitly stated they would develop a communist Cuban terror campaign and use it to justify military intervention. They were prepared to murder American citizens to start a war. The chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff signed off on it. It went all the way to the desk of President John F. Kennedy. Thankfully, Kennedy personally rejected the proposal. He was reportedly appalled. The plan was shelved, and the men who proposed it were quietly sidelined. Operation Northwoods remained a secret for nearly 40 years until it was declassified in the late 1990s. The theory that the military would plan to attack its own people to justify a war was unjust a theory. For a terrifying moment in American history, it was an officially proposed reality, sitting on the president's desk, waiting for approval. Conclusion: from manipulating the media to plotting false flag attacks, from medical experiments to psychological warfare, these declassified truths prove that a healthy dose of skepticism toward official stories is not paranoia. It is wisdom. It is necessary. These events changed history, shattered public trust, and serve as a chilling reminder that the truth is often hidden in plain sight, buried in classified documents, waiting for someone brave enough to expose it. The most unsettling question is not what we now know about the past. The most unsettling question is this: what conspiracies of today will be the proven facts of tomorrow? What are they doing right now that we only learn about when documents are declassified decades from now? What secrets are being kept in the name of national security? History has taught us to ask these questions, and history has taught us that sometimes the darkest theories turn out to be true.